Hi, my name is Kim Bland, and I am currently a student at Southeastern University. And today I'm going to be going over a followership workshop with you. What we will be discussing today is the definition of followership, the outcomes of this workshop, the impact and the norms on organization, concepts of followership, and how followership connects to real world settings such as self awareness, empowerment, and collaboration. We will also have an impact of tools that you can bring into your organizations. So let's go ahead and define followership. Researchers define followership as enthusiasm, cooperation, effort, active participation, task competence, and critical thinking. Followers take on the responsibility of a supporting role to meet an organization's goals. So, what will the outcomes be in this workshop? You will gain ideas and tools to incorporate in your organization, have some discussion and reflection around followership. You will also find some new training techniques to incorporate into your organization and gain a new language to use to empower followers. So, what are the organizational needs out there? For one thing, training is definitely lacking when it comes to followership. Also, understanding that being a follower is important. Many people actually have negative feelings about the word follower in general. It has a negative characteristic in the workplace. And in some terms, some people just consider it more of a religious term. Followers also need to be empowered. Right now, what we see is a lot of leaders are in power, not the followers, but these followers can be empowered. New language, new awareness, perceptions, and awareness needs to be incorporated into our organizations. So, what's the impact? Followership is vital because it balances and supports leadership. Without followers, leaders will not succeed. And unless leaders are supported by their followers, they cannot use power effectively and wisely. There are actually more followers than leaders in our organizations today. So, what are the concepts on followership? Followership is equal to or even more important than leadership. Both leaders and followers are necessary to achieving the common purpose and driving success in an organization. Leaders must start as followers before they can even empower others. More people, again, are followers than leaders out there. Humans have a leadership psychology as well that allows them to either lead or to follow. So we have both inside of us. As we take a look at this individual decision tree, what I'm showing this for is that an individual basically has the opportunity to either lead alone or lead as a group. And as you take a look at this, it shows you the path to going it alone. Is the individual being followed? No, they're a lone individual. If yes, they emerge as a leader. And then as we look at it as a group, is the individual willing to lead? Do they attract the followers actually? And then do they actually emerge as leaders or do they actually emerge more as followers? So just an interesting way of taking a look and thinking through how that decision is actually made in followership. So let's take a moment to reflect on this statement. The sheep will blindly follow the shepherd, for the sheep not know what to do. Without a shepherd, the flock of sheep, however, will follow each other. I'd like you to just take a moment and on your worksheets that were provided for you, just take a moment and journal or reflect or write out what your thoughts are in regards to this quote. All right, hopefully you had some good insight as you thought about that. Let's go into now the idea of reversing the lens and focusing on how followers are change agents and affect leaders in an organization. When we take a look at the reversing of the lens here, we take a look at followership characteristics, followership behaviors. Again, we're looking at the leader perception and the leader behaviors, and then what the followership outcomes actually look like. So, in followership characteristics, what are the impacts of the following traits? Confidence, motivation, and again, that perception of being a follower. In leadership characteristics, the impact of the leader's power and the ability to empower others, the perceptions they have about followership, and the leader's feelings specifically about the followers. Followership behaviors then incorporate the impact of whether they obey, defer, or resist leadership. And then the leadership behaviors are what is the impact of whether they influence followers to actually respond. This again comes out to the outcomes, the impact of the leader's reactions on the followers again. Is there positive or negative reinforcement from these leaders? And is the follower advancing the organization's aim? So let's have a discussion on this for a few moments. I'd like you to get into groups of 3 and 4, and I'd like you to answer the following questions. Remember, as you get into the group, I always encourage put on about 30 seconds on a timer and just take a moment for everybody to get 30 seconds in to just answer the questions so nobody overtakes the conversation and everybody gets an idea out there, because we always can learn something new from each other. But here's the questions I'd like you to answer. How do you reverse the lens in your organization? How would reversing the lens impact your organization? And what would this discussion look like to current leaders and followers in an organization? And then what is the benefit of reversing the lens? So just take a few moments and let's discuss these. All right, so as we come back, hopefully you got some good insight on this. Now we need to understand that followers must understand courage, power, integrity, responsibility, and the sense of service that they have for their organization. So here's some concepts to consider. A follower is like a pencil sharpener. A follower has a common aim with the leader. Followers are self-aware. Followers are empowered, and the follower understands perception, appreciation, and they understand the language of empowering one another. So let's take a look at this. Followers are like pencil sharpeners. They are shapers, not just implementers. And as we take a look at what a follower is, they leverage strength to complement the leader. They challenge the leader's decisions. They support the cause and the organizational goals. They volunteer and join activities to support the leader. They seek improvement, take on new challenges, and offer original and new ideas to the leaders. As we take a look at this, we just want to go, what is the type of follower that you personally are? And the Power of Followership Assessment was actually created by Robert Kelly. And what I would like each of you guys to do is just take a moment, this is of course in your notes, and fill this out. And let's check to see where you stand according to the questions that you're going to answer. And as you guys completed this, now we can take a look and we can go, okay, where do we fit within this approach? And when we take a look at this, what type of followers are we? Are we independent? Are we dependent? Are we passive? Are we active? Who are we? And when we can know who we are, we can address where we're going and maybe what we need to work on or who we may need to become to be a stronger follower. So the next area is we're going to just discuss, what does common aim look like? So we can say, this is the type of follower I am, where some improvement maybe, and then we're going to go in and go, here's the common aim we have. Followers and leaders take action toward a common goal. They support the organization. And I love this Clarion model that I found in my course this semester. And the question that they asked on there was, who are we? Where are we going? And what is my part? How do I play a role in this? A little bit further with this model, you guys can go out to this link. Now, this is a little bit more of a kingdom cultural Christian approach, but I do like the approach. Use it if you will, or take it all in stride. But I do like this area that talks about devotional ethics. We are focused on mission and people. Character ethics. People have value. Personality ethics. Emotional intelligence appears, and there's wisdom that comes out of that. Expediency ethic is where success becomes an idol. Wartime ethic is I win, you lose. And I think that this is a great way for us to have a conversation within our organizations and say, where do we stand as leaders? Where do we stand as followers? Because again, I think that wartime ethic is one that really kind of stuck out to me, is are we taking the approach that I win, you lose and we're kind of fighting against each other? Or do we focus on each other and the mission? And do we focus on what we're trying to achieve, again, in that common goal? So again, you guys can go out to this website at your convenience. I do think there's a lot more information out there on here, but I just really liked the display of this and something that I think we could take to our organization and have conversations around. So here's some other resource ideas. And we were just talking about what type of follower am I? We're now saying, how does our organization kind of react as followers and leaders? Now we want to even talk a little bit further about, do you know your leader? Do you know your followers? And I think that there's a lot of times we may or may not slow down and really take a look at this. I also think that people can shift from year to year. And I think it's really important to reevaluate. Something that can be done is just creating a personal report questionnaire and asking each other questions to get to know each other. I also have had a lot of experience with career pathways and ultimately helping organizations put the right people in the right places in their seats, and really going over and envisioning what are the goals and are we up to and on pace to go after the same things. And this is a really great way for us to just kind of create that pathway and really create that process of being lined up. Also, I find it very interesting that I think a lot of organizations do a good job of vision and mission. I do think we don't go back to that enough and have a conversation of, are we still in alignment? Is it still the same? Has anything adjusted? But the one area I find is that we sometimes have values that are like highlighted somewhere on a wall, but I find that we might not elicit values very often. And when we're interviewing, I believe that that's a lack of a discussion that I see with a lot of people, but our values should really align with each other and understanding, again, we're going towards this common goal. So a couple of resources that could be helpful in your organization is the path, the passion test to align yourself individually, and then traction. I love it. I think it's chapter 3 that does a really good job of eliciting those values with your organization. All right, so now let's go into self-awareness, right? So we're coming in and we're saying this is who I think I am. We're coming in and saying, okay, as an organization, I think that this is kind of what we're leaning towards, and we're starting to think, okay, we're on pace, we have common goal, we're lining up. But now the next thing is where are we at within the self-awareness? So many people, I think most organizations have taken tons and tons of assessments, and of course, there's the Enneagram, there's the Strength Finders, and that helps us to become more self-aware. Now, what I want to highlight is let's take those assessments and then let's ask some self-awareness questions wrapped around that. Because remember, awareness is the first step to change. And a question is there a switch inside of you that might need to change? If so, what is the switch? I always love to ask the question, am I coachable? Am I willing to have an awareness? Am I okay with people pointing something out to me that I might need to be aware of? How is my attitude? Am I willing to own it? Am I staying in my strength zone? This one's huge. And I think that there's a lot of times we talk about putting the right people in the right places in the bus. And as a leader, I think this is just such a key question for leaders to make sure that they are empowering those followers to go into the zones that sometimes us as leaders may lack. What would I need to shift to see that in myself? What question do I ask myself daily to get better in the organization? How do I grow in self-awareness? Something to just reflect upon for a few minutes here is you don't need to be the best in the world. You need to be the best for the world. And if we reflect on that, it's a big awareness to who am I trying to be? So this is the Johari window model. And this just goes back to what I was talking to. Okay. I know myself and others know me. That's the open self. Okay. The blind self is what others know about me that I might not know about myself. We'll go back to those questions. Am I coachable? Am I willing to see these things? Do I get defensive? I think that's a really great question to ask yourself. Or do you stay open to figuring out where are my blind spots? The unknown self. So not known to self, not known to others. How do we identify those things? And then the hidden self. It's known to myself, but it's not known to others. So again, getting to know each other. So when we look at this is team questions now that I would go into. We've taken the assessment. We've identified some of these questions that we're asking ourselves. Then we want to go into the group and we want to figure out, again, as we're looking at that model, is there a blind self? Is there a hidden self? Is there something we're not aware of? So what does this person need to be aware of? What are their shadows? So like when I take a look in Strength Finders is one, I'm a futurist. So this is my number one thing. I'm way out in the future all the time. I have to be reminded to come back to the present location. Otherwise, I can be way out in the future. And sometimes I'm so far out in the future, nobody's coming along with me, right? So what else do I need to know, or does that person need to know that they do not know? Do they honor their personality traits and do they honor others' personality traits? And I think that this is a great question to ask because I think sometimes if we go to this bottom area here, based upon what I learned, who do I need to become in that, right? And if we don't understand our personality traits or we don't honor other personality traits, is there an area that we need to start thinking a little bit more about? Who might I need to become to accept that? Do you accept responsibility for the outcome or do you accept excuses and blame others? And do I add value to the team? So these are great questions that as a team we can ask. And again, we're starting to look kind of on that shadow side. I think that that's a side that's missed. I think when we do Enneagram, Strength Finders, and anything, we're like, okay, this is my strengths. This is who I am. But I think that this is more of the self-reflection and the self-awareness to what do I need to be aware of. All right, so now let's go into empowerment. So I know who I am. I know that there may be some shadows or there may be some things that I need to be aware of. Now, how do we empower each other? I love the quote, people grow into the conversation around them. Are we empowering each other? Individuals can understand their power and magnify the leaders if they do. The leadership assessment measures the follower's willingness to question and challenge the leader's thinking, their policies, orders, style, language, and behavior. So when we take a look at empowerment, I love this slide, and I think this is a slide you could honestly put in front of your leaders and your followers, and we can have a great discussion, and everybody can circle what are the things that we do well in our organization, and what are maybe the things that are missing in our organization. So do we ask the difficult questions, or do people shy away from that? Do we have confidence? Is there consequences? Are we delegating well? Are we empowering others? Do we have insights and understanding? Trust, self-awareness, teaching, self-efficiency, clear directions. I think that a lot of times, and we go back to, guys, use the book Traction and go through the values. We can also sit down as a group and we can get clear directives, and boundaries are a big thing. And I've worked for a lot of leaders who want to work 80-hour work weeks. That doesn't work for my goals in my life. What are the boundaries? And can we set those boundaries? Again, this goes to, have you asked the value questions though, right? Because if we don't align with the values, we're going to have a tough time aligning with the vision. Challenging beliefs. Again, in your organization, is there Christ-like characteristics that you want to incorporate? Do we have emotional intelligence? This goes to our shadows. This goes to, are we coachable? Are we getting defensive? Guidance. Renewed mindset. Mindset to me is everything. I'm a huge mindset coach and just really renewing and thinking through things a little bit differently. Do we have spiritual maturity? What does performance look like? Are we getting feedback? And then do we have this visionary leadership going on? Okay, so we'll take a look at the courageous follower assessment next. And we again are just taking a look at, and we are asking, what type of a follower am I? When we look at this in quadrant one, the growth area for quadrant one partner would become bigger, become stronger and more skillful. In quadrant two, the growth is develop a willingness to challenge the leader. Quadrant three's growth is increasing the support for the leader's initiative and the common aim. And in quadrant four, we need to raise the level of support and learn to challenge. So looking at this a little bit further, again, we go into who the implementer is, who the partner is, the resource, and the individualist. And when we take a look at this, what I want you to take a moment and identify is what area do you fit in most? Again, this can be a really great group discussion that we can have, asking great questions along with that. Is there some shadow sides that we see here? All right, so perception, appreciation, communication, and language is critical in this next space here. So individuals will learn to value and add value to leaders to help the organized reach a common goal. Followers can empower leaders to help with any pitfalls or seductiveness that they may have when it comes to their power. And we, as followers, need to help empower that. So communication then becomes a leading force here. Leaders and followers must respond reciprocally to each other. So we have to say, is there positive and excellent communication between the both of us? Communication can be risky. There is always a risk of misunderstanding and defensive reactions. So we have to be aware of the riskiness. And we're going to talk a little bit about how do we ask great questions to hopefully eliminate some of the defensiveness. How do we stay in that positive and excellent role with each other when we're communicating with each other? We need to communicate honestly because we need to fill the gaps, not just be yes men. If there's something we don't like, how do we have and how do we communicate effectively with each other? So we're going to take a look at this language of empowerment. And this is something that I have learned in organizations that I've worked with. But when we look at the bottom, why is I'm going to say the lowest level question we can ask, and why can actually make people feel a little defensive. You know, when your mom said, "Why did you spill the milk?" Right? It kind of gives you that icky feeling inside of you sometimes with why. Not that why is a terrible question. We usually can do a little better though. So when we get into the how, the what, and the who, those become a little bit better questions to ask, eliminating some of that defensiveness. So here's the empowering questions. And by the way, empowering questions give us energy. So here's some questions to ask. How much influence do you have as a follower? A question, how can I serve you? How do we maximize this experience? What do I need to communicate? What do I need to know? And what did you learn? Who do I need to be to add value? And who do I need to be to exceed expectations? So then we go into perception, awareness, and appreciation. In awareness, we all experience the same thing differently. You need to ask questions when you're thinking about the awareness is what story might I be making up? The other thing is your focus on looking good and being right. When we get caught up in the story, we start to make assumptions. We need to ask, is the story serving myself? What judgments do I need to be aware of? And do I talk about the action or do I talk about the person? So here's the language that we want to talk about. When we're telling somebody something, that's judgment. When we come from questioning, it comes from curiosity. So some things that you can consider when you're talking as a group or two individuals, and you guys can create your language in your organizations. But when you ask something, may I have permission to give you awareness about? Is there a better question that I can ask? And that could be, I'm asking that prior to me maybe asking a question, or it could also be me asking another person, is there a better question we can be asking? Again, we're not asking why. We can, again, though, that can make people defensive, but a really great phrase is, I am curious. What happened here, right? What do you believe is the reason you're seeing it this way? What are other ways to see this? What might the company gain if you consider these ideas? I love this one. Help me out. If this was happening to you, how would you handle it? Other languages, I owe you an apology. Please forgive me. And then I go on with the discussion that I'm going to have. So language questions are the best path to great answers. And this is something as an organization you can choose to do or not. But I think that there's a lot of times as leaders and followers, sometimes we just need somebody to listen to us. There is other times that I want somebody to interact with me. And there's definitely other times that I want advice. So I think we can get used to, if we want as an organization, asking these three questions. Do you want me to just listen? Do you want me to ask questions and interact with you? Or do you want me to give you some advice? So, as we take a look at the impact of all of this coming together, everything begins with followership. The followers are the individuals who support the leader and make the vision possible. So, here's some final thoughts. A mind stretch can never go back. Accountability. I own it. And as we look at the definition, accountability is an obligation or willingness to accept responsibility or the account for one's actions. We as individuals are information rich and implementation poor. So, one thing I'd like to ask of you today is what is one thing that you will implement from what you learned today? Here are the references that I use throughout the presentation and researchers that I took a look at to help us identify what is most important when it comes to followership. I'd love it if you guys would take an evaluation for me at this moment. Go ahead and go to the Google Docs form and it will have these 4 questions on here. And if you'll just take a moment and fill that out for me, I'd love to know if there's any takeaways and anything that I can specifically improve. And I just want to take a moment to say thank you. I am emerging as a doctor in strategic leadership at Southeastern University. If you do have questions, you can call or text me at 719-651-4089. You can also shoot me an email at kbland1@seu.edu. I do hope that you have a great day today.